guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my March wrap-up. March was such a great reading month for me. I read so much. I read 5 books, and of those 5 books, 2 of them I had already started, so I finished them in March, and they were both audiobooks, and then the other 3 I started and finished in March, and one of them was also an audiobook. 3 of the books I gave 5 out of 5 stars, and 2 of the books I gave 4 out of 5 stars. So like I said, I had a really good reading month for March. The first book that I finished was Before the Devil Breaks You by Libba Bray. I had already started and listened to most of it in February. When I started it in March, I was part 11 out of 17. So I was more than halfway through the book, but I did finish it in March. I ended up giving it a 5 out of 5 stars. It was my favorite so far of the series, and I cannot wait for the next book. What I loved in this one, I loved all the characters. There was great character growth. I loved how the story ended up just coming together. All the point of views kind of came together, and just the story was less muddied than in Lair of Dreams, where we were following so many different characters. Really, and Before the Devil Breaks You, kind of everything just came into place. The story was merging together. I loved the twist and the turns. The ending was extremely surprising. I love the creepiness of the story. Just all in all, it was a fantastic book, and I absolutely loved it. I really recommend listening to the audiobook. The narrator does such a good job with the different voices, especially getting kind of like the dialogue of, you know, New York in the 1920s, and we've got so much diversity, and I think she does a really good job with that. So I really enjoyed it. Next, I finished City of Lost Souls by Cassandra Clare. This is the 5th book in the Mortal Instruments series, and I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars, or even a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. The first half of it was a little harder for me to get into. I was having trouble. When I was listening to the story, I was following along well, I was engaged, but once I wasn't reading the story, I didn't find myself like wanting to go back and read it. But when I was engaged. But halfway through, the story just got really intense. I enjoyed the characters so much more. So far, this is probably one of my favorite of the series, and I am really excited to finish the next one. The next book I read is Nevernight by Jay Kristoff. This was our book pick of the month from March, so I will link down below our live show that Hannah and I did, and it contains all of our thoughts, and it includes spoilers, so beware if you haven't read it yet. I ended up listening to it on audiobook, and I think it worked so much better. I ended up giving this between a 4 to a 4.5 out of 5 stars. We follow our main character, Mia, and she goes to an assassin school to learn to be an assassin in order to seek revenge on the people who killed her father when she was a little girl. The story itself is so interesting. It's unique. I love the plot, but kind of beware, this is definitely adult fantasy. It's got lots of violence, it's got lots of sex, and it has a lot of foul language. So those are kind of the 3 things to look out for in this book. Otherwise, the plot itself is really interesting. I loved Mia's character. The beginning of it, though, is really hard to get into because there's so much information. It's so info dumpy. But that's why I feel like the audiobook works really well, because the problem is that there are so many footnotes in this book. Let me see if I can find, there's a lot of footnotes, and some of these footnotes are in the middle of paragraphs, in the middle of sentences, so you find yourself kind of having trouble. Well, personally for me, I found myself having trouble stopping a sentence, going and reading the footnote, which is, you know, and all the footnotes are very political. It's where most of the world building is in. and then go back into the story. But when you're listening to the audiobook, it just flows really well. So that's why I really enjoyed the audiobook of it. And I like the narrator too. If you're having trouble getting through it, I'd say get yourself to about page maybe 120 or so. If after page 120 you're not engaged in the story, then you may not enjoy it. But after like 100 or so pages, the story really starts to get intense. Overall, it's a really, really good story. And I'm really intrigued to listen to God's Grave and see where the story goes. The next book I read is Shadow Kiss by Rochelle Mead. This is the third book in the Vampire Academy series. Hannah and I are doing a read-along of the Vampire Academy series. We've already read Vampire Academy and Frostbite, which is book 1 and 2, and we've already done our live show for it, which I will also link down below. We are going to be doing a live show for Shadow Kiss and also Blood Promise on May 5th. So if you are interested in joining, you've got plenty of time to read Shadow Kiss. I absolutely loved this book. This is one of my favorites in the series. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. What I love so much about this is I feel like Rose has so much character development and character growth in this book. This is where we really start to see Rose just change as a character, and her perspective changes, and she learns so much about the world, and things aren't necessarily in black and white, and I really, really love the story, and I love Rose. I love all the characters in this book, and it's one of my favorites. So definitely a 5 out of 5 stars. And the last book, I just started this book. I think I started it like 2 or 3 days ago, and that is Sideo by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. I didn't think I was going to be able to finish this book for March, honestly. I thought I was going to pretty much start, get a good chunk of it read in March and then finish it in April, but I read this book in pretty much 2 days. I absolutely loved it. This is the finale to the Illuminae files, and it was so good. 5 out of 5 stars. It is the best of all of the 3. This one is definitely the best. I loved Illuminae, I loved Gemina, but this one just went above and beyond. It was so good. I love the characters, I love the plot, everything just wraps up so beautifully in the end. As things were starting to really kind of resolve, I learned things that I was like, oh, I didn't even realize I didn't even realize that we didn't know that yet. And it was so good. The detail that goes into these books are just 5 out of 5 stars. It is written in such an interesting format. Schematics, diagrams, instant messages, video footage, just emails, really, really interesting format. And I loved the characters, I loved the story. It's just one of my all-time favorite stories, so I absolutely loved it. And I'm so glad that I was able to finish it, because this is what really pushed me to get my 24 hours for the Dewey's 24-hour like readathon. So the last week of March we were doing a readathon, and you had to get 24 hours in 1 week, and this is really the book that kind of gave me those last like 7-8 hours of reading, because I just devoured it. Alright guys, well that is it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Comment down below, let me know some of the books that you read in March, and let me know if you participated in the readathon, and if you were able to complete the challenge and what books you read during that challenge. We also have a Goodreads page that I'll link down below for you to go if you want to go participate in any of the Dewey stuff. So yeah, that is it for this video, and I will see you next time. Bye!